Good morning, students. This is an introduction to Photoshop. I'm going to show you some of the tools, some of the palettes where things live, the options at the top of the screen, and some of the drop-down menus that have really important things in them. These on the left over here are your tools. And a lot of these, we'll be describing as we go in class. I'll show you a few today. And most importantly, I definitely want to show you how to cut things out today in a couple different ways. Over here are palettes, these little buttons you can press. This top button that this history button is a very important one because you can click, and as you do things in your project, and I can drag this down a little further, as I will go back and show you this again, as you undertake actions within the program, they're all listed there in sequential order up to a certain amount that you can set yourself and your preferences, but the more history choices you have, the more RAM, if you know what that means, the project uses. So it goes back about 20 steps. If you're going back much further than that, you should have been saving along the way or set an autosave so that you don't have to go back 25, 30 steps. But I'll show you history more in just a moment. Layers are down here. We don't have any layers yet, but layers and history are the two most used panels over here, I'd say. I'm going to bring a picture in. I'm going to go to File. You can also drag stuff into an open document. So that's what I'll do. I'll create a new document. I'd like you to make your projects for this particular course 17 inches wide, 11 inches tall, 300 resolution. So we talked a little bit about that in day one. Resolution is your quality. Print resolution is about 300. Web resolution is approximately 72. So we'll talk more about that later. Here's a new document, pretty high quality. I'm going to import another picture. Now you see I have a layer over here. It's background. Always unlock your background. It doesn't hurt. You can leave it to be solid white and not use it. But this little lock in the background layer, I'm going to double click that, make it layer 0, because you can't really, like if I use the eraser really quick, and by the way, the two bracket buttons to the right of the letter P let you make your eraser and your paintbrush bigger or smaller. And I erase part of the background. You see that checkerboard in the background? That means it's transparent. So when you cut things out and you want them to be on a website or somewhere and you don't want to have the white square behind you, the picture, then you can cut it out, and the checkerboard means it's transparent. So if I hide that layer, that's nothingness in Photoshop. There's nothing there. And then in history now, you can see I started a new project. I made a layer and I used the eraser once. So that's how I can step back to make layer, and now you can go back a number of steps. And you can set it to your own liking in Photoshop, like I said. I've got one layer. Down at the bottom of the Layers tab, there's a little piece of paper with the corner turned up looking icon. That's the new layer. I click that, and now I have layer 1 and layer 0. So each layer is like a new transparency that you can put stuff on and move it around. And your collage, you'll pick a nice big background picture, and then you can put other stuff on there or whatever. If you don't want to make a collage, you have to propose to me what you do want to make. If your tools disappear, you can find them under Window, and down at the very bottom, Tools. It's a check mark there. That's if any of your windows ever disappear or you can't find, like for example, your layers or your history. Layers and history are two of the most important tabs. So let me bring a picture in, File, Place. I can either drag it in just off the desktop, or I can go to File, Place. I'm going to choose this screenshot of this dog. It looks blurry when you first bring it in, but that's because it wants to know, do you want to place this here? Is this what you want to do? I could stretch it a little bit bigger, but usually you want to stay with as big a picture as you can and go down in size, if anything, because when you go up in size, the computer has to guess the extra pixels that it's filling in, all that white space. And it will still look good quality. I could do it for now and show you that it works to a certain extent, but I'm going to leave it this size, which is nice, high quality that my camera took it. And this is again, this 17 by 11 is about the same as those posters on the wall over there above the window. The guy with his hair that's fire, and the vest and the building, and the person that has water wings, or the water person. Those are about roughly 17 by 11. So this is a good sized picture. taking your own pictures is the best way with a camera of 8, I'd say 8 megapixels or better is the best way for you to get super high quality, big photos to work with. Anyway, there's a couple different ways to cut stuff out. I could use the eraser. Okay, let me turn off layer 0 so you can just see the checkerboards in the background. Right now, an important thing that often happens, this screenshot that I brought in is a smart object. I'm not going to go into that right now. There will be a separate video for that. But if I control click on a Mac, right click if you have a right click mouse, which I highly recommend, or I just have problems with this particular mouse. But if you control click on the layer, you see where it says rasterize layer? That turns it into pixels. When it's a smart object, it still has other qualities to it other than just the pixels. So when you rasterize it, now I can take the eraser and I can try to get rid of the edge like that. This is the most rudimentary way of getting rid of edges, basically, on some sort of an object. And I could go in and, again, the two square bracket buttons to the right of the letter P let me make this smaller, and I could go in. I've done this a lot, so I could probably do this pretty well, but you can see I messed up. I took part of the dog out when I did that. But it gets a little trickier in some areas. You have to go in, and you still have to do this in the method that I'm going to show you anyway. But let me go back in my history when I rasterize the layer and show you another tool instead. Some people try to use the lasso, but that's kind of the same exact thing as the eraser as far as having to draw the edge. You can see it a little better. So you draw the edge along, and then you swipe back around like this and get pieces of it. And anytime you see these marching ants, that means whatever's inside of those ants can be worked on or deleted like this. Or also with the marching ants, underneath select up top, people often ask me about this. Under select, inverse, which is Shift Command I. That's what those little things up there mean, the up, the command, and the I. Shift Command I then shifts it so that everything outside of what I just selected is now chosen. So that's how you inverse your selection. That's a really important kind of neat thing for you to be able to do. Again, you can see I just keep going back through my history and going back to where I want to be. One of the most useful tools, and there's a pen tool as well. The pen tool is the one tool that rules them all in actually Illustrator. That's where you have to use a pen and you click and little handlebars come out of the next dot. I'm still holding the button down. And you have to drag the handlebars using math and curves. So the computer is running algorithms to figure it out based on how you pull these handlebars. And this is a really good way of selecting and cutting stuff out. And then you have to hold Option to be able to swing the handlebar without swinging both of them. If you can figure out how to use this tool, and I'll help you if you really want to. I mean, I'm going to just really quick finish my line. So you can see that then I would control click on that line and make selection. And that's how the pen tool is a very powerful tool. If you master the pen tool, you can do almost anything in Illustrator and probably Photoshop too, because it gives you great power using math and being able to go into the dots later and change the handlebars later as well, so that you can make things be selected exactly the way you want. Like if it's something you're trying to get that's really fine, like there's a few hairs and you just can't paint around the edges of the hairs, the pen would let you go in. I cut whiskers out on an animal one time, and I used the pen to go in, zoomed in really far for each whisker and cut it out super perfect. So that's something down the line. If you continue to use this program, the pen tool is your friend. It's hard to learn at first, and people get frustrated, like, I hate this. But then after you get it, it's almost like snowboarding is also hard at first. You're on your rear a lot the first day if you try it. But after you get it, it's amazing. And the pen tool is one of those tools that gives you superpowers with regards to designing in Photoshop and Illustrator. Anyway, an even easier way, by the way, to deselect a shortcut is the same one for when you're trying to save something and choose where you want to put it. If you hit Command D, it's the desktop in a dialog box. Command D deselects. So I can just make the selection go away. by doing that. Command Z, by the way, is undo. You can only really, unless you do a series of keys, you can only undo one step. History is easier to look at to see where you want to go instead of just undo, undo, undo anyway. This fourth tool down that you can't really see it. Here, let me slide the screen over. This fourth tool down right here is the quick selection tool. And this is an upgrade from when I was starting with this program, the magic wand. You click it and it tries to guess the area you want to. The quick selection allows you to kind of paint the area you want to select. So right now you can see, if I zoom in a little bit, by the way, Command plus will zoom in. You see I've got this little corner over here selected. I also want the area out here selected, but I'll get that later. And if I use quick selection, now I'm going to paint along the dog. It does a pretty good job. You see how close that is? I mean, a lot of kids will just use quick selection, and I can tell. I zoom into your edges when I'm grading you in the course. That's a California Visual Performing Arts certified elective. I check people's edges really close. But look how well it's cutting this out. Imagine how fast it missed this part of the machinery in the back. I can go fix that later. I'll show you how. I'm just trying to get a rough edge so that I can go in and refine that edge. So here I am. I'm going around the wheel. Click once up. See, it just took off all the machinery in the back. So that's something I'm probably going to have to do by hand. I can undo that. Come over here, see what I can get on this side. Without having it jump too much. I'm scrolling, that's why it's jumping around like that. Pretty good so far. Oh, I lost the whole bottom part of the dog. You can see that the marching ants are now, I'm going to Command Z because I want to get as much as I can with this quick selection. The shadows on the ground are making this tough. That's why it's not just snapping to the sides of the dog right away. So if I just click once, yeah. There's a tolerance. I don't want to get into that right now. You can adjust the tolerance of how this is working. But I got most of the top of the dog, and now, let me zoom back out. There's actually something, let me see if I can get a little bit more. Nope. There's a button on the toolbar all the way down near the bottom. It's the second to last thing on the bottom. It looks a little bit, it's actually a rectangle with a circle within, and it's the Quickmask button. And this is like the secret to painting perfect, other than whiskers, painting perfect selections. When you click on Quickmask, everything, okay, first before I go, I'm going to go back out of Quickmask. So regular mode shows the marching ants. Quickmask shows this. If I hit delete right now, that's what's being deleted, okay? That part that I just selected. In Quickmask mode, you can see that that's clear. All right? What's being deleted. Now, to delete more, I can use the paintbrush in Quickmask mode. People make a mistake here where they tend to use the quick selection tool inside of the Quickmask mode, and that's making a selection inside of a selection, and you break the fabric of space and time, and you end up with a paradox, and a black hole would open up in the room, and we would all get sucked in. So you can't do that per se, but within Quickmask mode, you can use the paintbrush and paint in black and white to paint your selections perfect on the edge. And this is the super secret key, and I've used a lot of Photoshop, and I've done a cutting out in a lot of ways that beginners can become super good really fast if you master Quickmask. First, quick selection, and then Quickmask to paint the edges. And remember the two bracket buttons next to the letter P? I can make this bracket really big right now. See, because I said I was going to get this later. I made my brush huge because I want, actually, I have to paint. If you I think you switch black and white. So now I switch to, I'm painting in white, but in this mode, it's just getting rid of more stuff that I want deleted. So I can use this huge brush to get large swatches away, like I would use a huge eraser. And then I can go underneath, take out relatively close, like this. And now I'm going to shrink the brush back down. When I go back out of Quickmask mode to marching ant mode and I hit delete, now I've gotten rid of that much of the dog. And then you would just go in Quickmask mode where you can paint in black and white. Let's say I messed up. Oh no, I took away part of the dog, which you can see in real time now is also gone, that part of the dog. What if I don't want to do that? If I go back into Quickmask and I switch the color on the paintbrush from white to black, and there's this little curved arrow right above the two colors down here in the bottom corner, I can switch every time that you can set whatever two colors you want to be those two boxes, but I can shift from background to foreground, background to foreground. And then once I shift back to painting in black, I can fill in the error that I made. So you can see, whereas you can go along the very edge of whatever it is, and I would suggest, Command plus and minus lets you zoom in. You can go in and fix it. Like in the back, this little piece is missing. I can make the brush a little smaller, like this. I can go in and I can paint my edge so that it's pretty much perfect. I'm not going to take a whole lot of time to make it close to perfect, but and you see the wheel's a little messed up. I can switch back to painting in white and kind of make the brush a little bigger and kind of smooth out the wheel like that, so it's a nice clean edge around. And you just don't be afraid to take a little bit off once in a while in the sake of having a nice rounded edge. Like if I took a little bit of tire off there, it's okay because the viewer won't be able to tell visually, and it's going to be a nice smooth curved wheel. And now when I go back out of that mode, you can see that selection is perfect along the wheel. That is quick selection and quick mask, and that is your key to cut out success. You can use that all week. Use whatever pictures you want, and we can adapt them however you want and make funny pictures, make collages about you, whatever you want to make. And that's a lot of information, but primarily what I wanted to show you is how to cut things out and how to use quick selection and then quick mask using the paintbrush within quick mask. Because people get confused, then only painting in black and white. Because if you choose another color, it's going to choose a shade of gray, and it's going to paint 50% and half cut stuff out. It's shades of gray in quick mask mode, so it's either black or white. If you paint in gray, you would be deleting 50%. If you ever delete something and you're like, wow, it's ghosting on me, Mr. Gamble, half of it's there, half of it's not, it's because you were probably painting in quick mask mode in some other color other than black and white. All right? If you have any questions, you can ask me. I'm going to conclude this screencast, and you can watch this again at home during the week. Make sure you download your free 30-day trial of Photoshop during the course so you can work on this at home as well. Thanks for listening.